Just last year, our next guest burst onto the literary scene with a debut novel that earned raves and even snagged awards before its official publish date. And now, 1 year later, Beatriz Williams has released her second book, 100 Summers. Author Beatriz Williams joins us now on Connecticut Style. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So let's talk about this new book, 100 Summers. When does it take place, and give us the background?
It takes place in an exclusive sort of old money Rhode Island summer community in the summer of the great New England hurricane of 1938, which, as we know, devastated the area, kind of thundered ashore without warning, and really just laid waste to large portions of the Connecticut and Rhode Island shoreline. And then it switches back and forth to 1931 when the two protagonists first meet and fall in love.
Got it. So there's not just a hurricane in the weather that's happening, there's also kind of a cyclone of emotions as well, right?
Well, exactly. In 1931, these two characters meet and they fall in love, Nick and Lily. Lily's from a very old money background, conservative sort of Knickerbocker New York family, and Nick is also from New York, but his father is Jewish, which is, a bit of a problem when it comes to parental approval, certainly in the 1930s and in that segment of society. So as we switch back and forth between 1931 and 1938, we realize that things in 1931, as beautiful as this courtship seems, did not actually end well. And in 1938, Lily and her family, they're back in their Rhode Island community for the summer, and Nick shows up and he's married to Lily's best friend, Budgie.
More betrayal there.
Exactly. So we get to find out what happened in 1931, as well as really the truth behind what happened with Nick and Budgie.
Now, Beatriz, where did you come up with this idea?
It's funny, like most of my ideas, they kind of percolate in my brain for a long time before I actually sit down and write. So it's hard to say it was this moment or that thing, but I was always fascinated by the story of what happened to Napatri Point during the hurricane. And while the setting is a fictionalized version of this sort of Watch Hill area, I did love that story, or really was fascinated by it, because it is a horrible and tragic story. You had all these lovely beach cottages on Napatri Point, and the hurricane came with this massive storm surge that was not like a gently rising sort of
washed it away, right?
It was like a tsunami, really. It was a wall of water, and it washed all of those beach cottages away. And if you've ever been to Napatri, you see that it's just dunes now. It was never rebuilt. So the devastation was enormous. I thought, there's a story there, definitely.
Sure, and you made one.
I did.
What would you say was a challenge writing this novel?
Well, aside from just the pphysical challenge, I have 4 kids, so it's always a challenge.
That's going to be tricky, right? How do you have time to do this?
Writing time. Well, when I'm kind of in the last thirds, and I tend to spend a long time with it simmering in my brain before I sit down to write. So I have this sort of very intense 6 to 8 week drafting period, and my kids are running around, half clothed and unfed, and my husband is sort of like, well, what's for dinner? And I'm like, get it yourself. And so that's challenge. That's the sort of physical challenge. But in terms of the actual writing of the book, well, having already had a book under my belt, I was more comfortable with the technical aspects, so I had less polishing to do. But whenever you're working with 2 storylines, it's a bit like putting a puzzle together, and you want each episode to relate to the other. So it's really the weaving of the plot together and everything making sense, and the character development happening in the right way.
Now, what do you want readers to take away from 100 Summers?
Well, the book really kind of juxtaposes what we feel is this very permanent East Coast beach society, and I'm from the West Coast, and that fascinated me when I arrived here, and my husband's family has been in New England for a long time. But just this idea of these clubs and these little summer beach communities where everybody knows each other, and they've known each other since they were little, and for generations they've been coming there, and there's a sense of permanence, and then it all gets washed away by the storm. So we have this illusion of permanence. But on the other hand, I think in the end the book is about what's really permanent, and what's really permanent is the love that we have for each other and the relationships with each other. So really that's kind of the takeaway, that storms can come. And I had already actually written the book and sent it in. It was in copy edits when Sandy came ashore and devastated so much of certainly New Jersey and New York and parts of Connecticut as well. All this physical stuff gets torn away, and what you thought was so permanent is gone. But the love and the relationships and the families are
It's
still
the
there.
moral of the story.
So
And I know that you were on People Magazine's Best Reads for the Beach.
Yes,
That's pretty
we're
cool,
one of their
Beatrice.
top beach reads and a few other publications as well, Good Housekeeping, so we're very excited.
That's awesome. All right, and you have an upcoming signing. You
Yes.
are going to be out there in
Bank Square Books in Mystic, a luncheon. I think you have to sign up ahead of time, so just go on their website, and I'd love to meet everyone. And here's storm stories. I've been trying to, at my signings, I know there's a lot of families with stories about the storm, and I'd love to hear those. I'll be calling on you.
All right, the name of the book again, 100 Summers by Beatrice Williams. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, up next, Chef Barbara combines the flavors of strawberry and rhubarb with two classics when style returns. But first, take a look at this.